For example number 4, here's another reason that we're doing this. So Stephen has 500 bucks. He's starting off with, we already know that when you start off with $500, it's the principal P. And it says, what annual interest rate? That means that we don't know what the rate is, so we're going to solve for R. Compounded quarterly. Quarterly means that it's K times 4, or K equals 4, because it's done 4 times a year. Will he double his money in the time 10 years? Now it says he'll double his money. He started with 500, right? And he'll double his money. So what do I put for A? 1,000, that's true. I could put 1,000, but you know what Mr. Adams wants you to think? I want you to think 2 times what he started with, 2p. And then, God bless you. And then that would be 2 times 500, which is 1,000. I want to show you a little trick here. What formula do we use? A equals, yeah, plus R over K. What goes here? K times T, right? All right. Well, what you don't know, and you'll figure out by the time you finish your homework, is that the first step when we solve for something in the right-hand side of the equation is that you're always going to take A and divide it by P. And I happen to know for a fact, so let's fill this out. If I say 1,000 equals 500, and then I'm not even going to fill in the rest for right now. The first step usually is you divide both sides by this, right? And you'll end up with 2 equals 1 plus RK over KT, right? Well, what if I were to say instead of A, what if I were to put 2 times P because we doubled it? And then I put P here and 1 plus RK and K to the T. What if I were to do that? What would I do? Divide both sides by P, right? So if I divide both sides by P, what happens? I get 2 equals 1 plus RK over KT. So when they say double your amount, you could put in 2P. When they say triple your amount, what would you say? 3P. If they said quadruple the amount, what would you put in? Do you need to know how much the amount is that you start with? No, because it works out the same either way, right? The reason I say that is you do have 2 homework problems that have been assigned where they don't tell you how much money you start with. They say you're going to double your amount, double your principal, and then there's another problem that says you'll triple your principal, and they don't tell you what you start with. Now, you could arbitrarily choose any value. You can put in 5 and 10 or 5 and 15 or whatever, but this is one way to do it. So now let's proceed. So I've got 2 is equal to 1 plus point, what was it, 9? Oh no, we don't know what it is, so it's just R over K, which is 4, raised to the 4 times 10, right? Like that. Is that right? Okay. So now, I got 1 plus R over 4 raised to the 40. You guys with me so far? So now algebraically, I've got to get this R by itself, which means I've got to do something with that 40. Okay? I can't distribute the 40 through everything in the parentheses, and I can't raise 1 plus R over 4 40 times and then factor out all the R's. That would not be helpful. Now, your textbook recommends that you do this algebraically. Or I mean, not algebraically, but graphically. And so whenever your textbook says do it graphically, you could set this equal to y sub 2, and then set all this stuff equal to y sub 1. And we're going to try that, and then I'll show you. It's a little complicated to do it the other way, to do it algebraically. So first let's wrap our mind around it. So I'm going to start with parentheses, 1 plus, then instead of r I'm going to put x, but you know what I forgot to do? Parentheses. Okay? Raised to the 40. And then over here, I'm going to just say 2. When I graph it, it's going to take a long time because yesterday Mr. Adams did some math problems in calculus that their answers were like 700,000. I need to change the setting on my calculator. All right, so it looks like it crosses right by the y-axis. So I'm going to change my zoom. But before I do that, let me change. This is crazy. Let me change a few things. 0 and do 0.1, and then wait, window. And let's do x from like 0 to 1, and let's do y from 1 to 3. Now you guys know why I picked those points? Because when I looked at the graph, it looks like the intersection, it was before 0 and 1 in the x direction, and we're solving for when y equals 2, so that's between 1 and 3. So I set my x and y parameters. You guys should be doing the same. I don't see any calculators in your hands. You should have your windows and have your equations plugged in, okay? All right, so it's going to take a second for that second line. It probably doesn't help that I have like 7 programs running on my computer at the same time, too. So it's taking a while. All right, so now we have the intersection. What do I do next? I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to hit second trace. Find the intersection. And it'll say first curve. Now the first curve is the red cursor. And you know what? I see my y value, it's really, really high. I want to keep going to the left until that gets closer to 2. So this is really close to 0. I'm getting there, 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 I'm getting there. See the y values? 6, 5, 4, 3. I got to get close to 2. There it is. So I want to go just a little bit to the left of the green line, hit enter, a little bit to the right. Okay, now I want to try and get it smack dab where it intersects. And the intersection occurs at like 0.699 or 0.7. So I'm going to say R is equal to 0.699. Was it 0.699? Yeah. It had a 0 in there, right? Let me double check that. Yeah, it was 0. All right. Now, one thing I want to remind you guys, what does this mean? So it's 0.0699. It's rate. What does that mean? What's the interest rate? Yeah, I gotta move the decimal back 2 spots. So it's actually like 699%. And I think I gotta double check. Maybe I want to make sure I rounded that correctly. Yeah, see this? That's a 1, so that means we round down. Does that make sense? So just to recap, if you had $500 and the interest was at 6.99, and you invested and they compounded the interest quarterly, and you left it in there for 10 years, you would double your money. Does that make sense? That's what we just figured out. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, good.